Hello everyone, this is a quick tutorial on migrating to your SQL version of Kennel Connection. This video assumes you already have the SQL server installed and configured properly. So the first thing we want to do is always make sure that our current Microsoft Access version of Kennel Connection is up to date with the latest service release. So I'm going to go ahead and open Kennel Connection. And the reason why we always check this is because there may have been a change made to the migration utility, and if you don't have that change, the migration may not go smoothly. So to check, we're just going to go to Help, About Kennel Connection, and I'm on 6.01.14, and if I click on Check for Updates, it says I'm on the most current release. So we're going to click OK. While we're on the screen, we also want to click on the System tab and just take note that we are installed to the C KC6 folder. So that's where we're going to be doing our work. We'll click OK, and we're going to close right out of Kennel Connection. Now the first thing we have to do is find the name of our new SQL server. So to do that, you should have installed Microsoft SQL Management Studio along with your SQL server. So I have mine right here, and I did get to that by going to the Start menu, and I had it listed right there. It may be in your All Programs folder. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to our SQL server. And the easiest way to find the server name is actually to run a query. You can always look at the top of the Client Explorer here, and normally this is the name of your server, but just to be sure, we'll run this query. So we're going to click on New Query, and we're going to type in the word select in all caps, 1 space, 2 @ symbols, and without any spaces, server name. Once you've typed that in, simply click on Execute. And now you can see below here, here's the name of our SQL server, and it does match what's at the top of the Client Explorer. So you can write this down or right-click on it and copy, as we're going to need that information on the next screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize this window for now. Now what we have to do is tell Kennel Connection that it's no longer going to be pointing to the Access database, it's now going to be pointing to the SQL server. So go ahead and go into Computer, and double-click on your C drive. Double-click on your KC6 folder. And scroll all the way to the bottom and find the wkennel.ini file. Again, it may not say .ini, but if you move your mouse over it, it should say Configuration Settings. Go ahead and double-click. And scroll all the way to the bottom. And you can see the SQL Server settings here. Currently they're all blank. We have to add these in. So that server name that we just found by running that query, that's going to be your server. So I'm going to go ahead and paste. Database will always stay wkennel. On the server computer where your SQL server is, where your database is, trusted should be yes. This can always be changed later if there's an issue accessing Kennel Connection. Your user ID is SA, and the password is the password you created for SA during your SQL setup. You should have written that down somewhere. SQL type, unless you are paying for the full version of SQL, or if you have a small business server, it may have came with the full version of SQL, will always be Express. If you have the full version, you'd want to type in regular. Once we have all these settings here, click File and Save, and close out. Okay, now that we're pointing Kennel Connection to SQL Server, it's time to run the migration. This migration will take all your data from your old Access database and put it into the SQL Server. So we're going to find the Kennel Connection Migration utility. And in KC6, it'll always be called KC6 Migration Utility. Go ahead and double click it. Now we need to select your wkennel.mdb. This is your old Access database. This is the database that we're taking the data from. So go ahead and click the Browse button. And you want to make sure that it's pointing to the correct location. So I look up here, I see we're in Computer, C Drive, KC6 folder. And here's my MDB, here's my Access database. So go ahead and double click it. And when you purchased the upgrade to SQL, you should have received a migration code. Go ahead and enter that in now. Once you have your migration code entered, just double check it so we know we're in CKC6. We have the wkennel.mdb in the CKC6 folder. We have our code entered and we are good to go. So we're going to click on Migrate Kennel Connection Data. And we can see that it's opening the SQL Server database. Normally, if it's going to go on the first try, it'll open within a minute. And you can see it's now converting the tables. And this is a relatively small database. It's a test database, so it only took less than a minute. Normally, if you're upgrading to SQL, you're around 100 megabytes to 150 megabytes. You could be looking at anywhere from 15 minutes to over an hour, depending on your database size, free computer resources, processing speed, all that. So you definitely want to put some time aside where you can keep your systems down. So we see it's success. We're going to click OK. We're going to go ahead and close out of this KC6 window. And we're going to launch Kennel Connection. So the first thing we're going to do now is make sure that it's now running on SQL. And to do that, we're going to go to Help, About Kennel Connection, and click on System. And we now see the database type is SQL Server, whereas before it was Microsoft Access. So we're now running on the SQL Server or SQL Server. So we'll click OK. Close out of Kennel Connection. And that's it. The next step will be to set your SQL DSN, which is in another video. You can also visit our knowledge base for other articles on setting up the SQL Server, the migration, DSNs, and pretty much anything you need. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Thank you.